Good morning, everyone. Seeing as it is 8 o'clock, Wednesday, March 1st, 2023, meeting of the Gardner City Council Finance Committee will come to order. The clerk will please call the roll.
Councilor Ronquillo.
Present.
Councilor Donalowitz.
Present.
President Kaczynski.
Present. Thank you. Is anyone here recording today's meeting? Okay. We will begin with the acceptance or correction to minutes of prior meetings for the September 15th, 2022 Finance Committee meeting minutes.
We'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Ron Cormier, seconded by Councilor Donalowitz to accept the minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 10910, an order appropriating $33,139 from free cash to health department vehicle expense account. We have our public health director Saunders here today and Mayor Nicholson. This is regarding a new vehicle to kind of get ahead, anticipating for a new position. Director Saunders?
Yep, so we are adding another position to the department. It's going to an inspector position, whether it's a food or housing inspector position, yet to be determined. I'm hoping one or the other, but kind of wait and see kind of what we get. Because it's just as we continue to grow, housing is growing, the need for housing, the need for food inspections. So the position will be very helpful to the department, and everyone else has a vehicle for day-to-day operations. So this is to request an additional vehicle.
This position is meant to be out on the street more often than in the office as the main inspector. There are certain violations that require inspections be done on a daily basis until a correction is made, but we really can't do that with staff that has to be in the office, both out on the road, making sure that things are going in the current capacity that we currently have. So that's why this position was added in the supplemental budget, but where this position is meant to be out and about, that's why they really require a car. Now, by state law, there is a vehicle deduction that's taken from the person's payroll each week to account for the fact that they are driving a city vehicle rather than their own. So they actually just like Social Security, Medicare, but we don't do that, but the pensions that are taken out here, or any retirement deductions that are done, there's also a deduction taken out for vehicle uses for the certain department heads who have, or department heads and staff members that have vehicles as well. So this would fall into that category. Just to put this into perspective, we have the 90 homes that are slated for the Clark Street Century Way area. In 3 of the buildings downtown right now, we're looking at 75 new apartments. There's a construction planned on Remain Street for about 110 additional apartments. Over in the Central Park building, we're looking at another 100 to 200, closer maybe 175 apartments there. All of these are either vacant and being refurbished or newly constructed. So these are going to be a lot new. There's potential for up to 1,100 new residents in the downtown area alone, let alone across the city. So that's one of the reasons why we're looking at a housing inspector. But with that too, we also have about 7 new restaurants that are looking at the city right now that would also require inspection. So figuring out how to make that work with the position, but trying to get the money available so that we can purchase the car so that by the time the position is hired, they can just hit the ground running and go, rather than having to wait for a longer period of time before they can really get out in the field.
When do you anticipate starting hiring for that position?
Yeah,
Soon.
we're currently I'm working with Deb on the job description just because it's a new position. It's not one that we've had before. So I did send her some examples yesterday of some other communities that I found, like the wording that makes sense for the inspector position. So hopefully very soon.
Yeah, a lot of communities have a specific housing inspector or a food inspector where we're trying to see if we can have aspects of both in this position. It's really just combining pieces of what we've seen in other communities.
So this vehicles for inspecting homes, restaurants, those kind of, so it's not going to be going anywhere, like.
No, Title IX would still be you and Angela, right?
Title 5 is
Title
just
V,
me, yeah.
Oh, Title
We're not
V.
going to get stuck anywhere.
No.
No, but still all-wheel drive is just basically the only thing we're looking for, yeah. We do have one truck already in the department, which is good because like our transfer station operator is out. We need to sometimes deliver toters, pick up toters, so we need one truck, which we have, but this would just be another inspection vehicle.
Question, comments from the committee? Councilor Cormier?
Individuals that we are looking for, do these people have to be certified in any ways, or it's a non-certified position?
Yeah,
Has anything to do with this?
Yeah, there's just, I mean, like, for example, if it's a food inspector that we hire, there's some food things that would need to be like a serve safe, manager certificate, housing. There's nothing really in place for our housing, inspector, but,
Second question, and going along with that, food establishments, how often do they have to be inspected?
food establishments are every 6 months. Some we do more based on risk. So for example, like a convenience store carries less risk than, say, a nursing home where this is a highly susceptible population. Currently, right now, just for an example, we have a restaurant in the city that is giving us some problems, and we're there multiple times a week. We've talked to other inspectors in communities where they've gone to a place, one particular establishment, every single day before they've allowed them to open. And that might be, so like, it depends. Some require more attention than others, let me just put it that way.
And apartments, now we're talking, do all apartments have to be inspected, or is there a,
No, this is people will call us if there's a housing code violation, or they feel there's a housing code violation. Some are a one and done inspection, others are 3, 4, 5 inspections before you can close the case. Right now, we have 2 cases that we would like to bring to housing court, which is very, very time consuming. I mean, housing court is in Leominster on Fridays, but it's very packed, so sometimes we go to Worcester for cases. It's because they have it Monday to Thursday. So that, again, certain different things take a lot more time than some others.
Other questions, comments, or anything?
Normal course in purchasing these new vehicles is buying a new vehicle?
Yeah.
Miles are high, I assume, for this type of work. You're driving all the time.
Exactly, yeah, when they're meant to be out in the field, the miles get high real quick.
Okay. Anything else?
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we recommend
Second?
passage.
Motion made by Councilor Premier, seconded by Councilor Delarose to recommend passage to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 10911, an order appropriating $3,690 from free cash to city clerk professional services account. This item is regarding kind of some expansion and integration to OpenGov, which used to be Viewpoint, and getting that, integrating that into the city clerk's office and the work that they do there. Mayor Nicholson?
Thank you very much, Madam President. This is just to streamline the process for dog licensing. There are some issues with the current software that we're seeing right now, where we already utilize OpenGov and have an open-ended license right now with that for all of our city departments. This would onboard that licensing process into the city's online platform, so all of our licenses would be on one specific platform, but also make it so that the staff in the clerk's office can already go into the system. Clerk Serafin and Mix Lawrence can certainly respond more to that in the particulars of the day, but this is really just trying to make things a lot easier. This would not be implemented until January of 24. What this would do now is allow Viewpoint to make the custom application for us based off of what we require of our licensing, and then train the staff on that so that by the time it goes live in January 24 to the public, it'd be fully ready to go and fully trained.
Thank you. Clerk Serafin, do you have anything to add?
So this is, right now, our dog program that we're using. Our previous one went bankrupt, so we automatically had to go to this other program to finish off our license. And since we've had that program, it's been quite a challenge for the staff. We have been on the phone with them probably like every day or once a week at least to fix and tweak our licensing program. If we can get on OpenGov, which is a platform that everyone already uses here with the city, then our business certificates are already on there, Class 2 licenses are on there, the second-hand deals license, at least for our office on there, and other departments with licensing. It'll get everybody on that same platform and hopefully ease some.
The only question we have to answer with the prior software company is no longer supporting it.
Right.
Questions, comments?
This cost is for them to build out the forms, the ability to use the system going forward. Is there an additional yearly cost to keep those?
It's roped into the city subscription cost
So it's
already.
just already built in. This is just to get it added, and it's
Yes.
just going to be no additional cost.
Correct.
Okay. Makes sense. And I think that's all I had. Yes. Thank you.
Further questions, comments?
I make a motion to recommend the passage of the order to the appropriation to full council.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Donald, seconded by Counselor Cormier to recommend passage to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 10912, in order appropriating $8,900 from free cash to FAA Airport Master Plan Professional Services Account City portion. So this goes kind of on the heels of the $150,000 grant that we have received from the FAA. The MassDOT matched it for $8,900, and this is the city's match to that, the $8,900. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Director Davis wasn't able to be here today, but she is our new airport manager. She's actually out currently plowing the runway. But she's been doing a great job just trying to make sure we follow whatever the FAA guidelines are for these grants. This would be a 5-year master plan that we'd be doing through Gale Associates, our on-call contractor for the airport. They will make, this is basically what do we need to do over the next 5 years to make Gardner Municipal Airport a more utilized and more known facility. What hangars need to be added, where they can be added, what should be looking at the runway. Is the runway worth expanding to allow for jet traffic? Because right now it's too small for jet engines and can only do smaller planes. This is basically just hiring a consultant to see how can we better utilize the airport facility. So as you said, Madam President, there's $150,000 from the federal government, another $8,900 from the state government. This is the city's equal portion match to that there. And just as an aside, because this would have been Ms. Davis's first finance meeting had we not had the snow yesterday. She did find out yesterday too that she filled out all the application paperwork and got an additional $61,000 grant that does not have a match for the airport as well. That money should be coming in shortly. But again, these are all things that just come in and help offset our costs for work that we have to then put into the airport as well.
And if I'm not mistaken, within the last couple of weeks, we appropriated our share towards runway and taxiway improvements. You can't apply for those grants without having a master plan.
Correct.
And an updated master plan.
Correct.
Having served on this at one point.
Yes, there'll also be
a,
there's a document coming to the council soon as well. It's currently being drafted or reviewed by the Airport Commission. Every so often they have to have their standard operating procedures adopted by the city council in order to approve what they have set for fees, for tie downs, hangar rentals, gas prices and things like that. So that'll be coming soon because that's also a requirement to be eligible for FAA grant funding.
Yeah, I guess not even directly related to this one, but the 61,000 grant you mentioned, is that for something in particular, general maintenance, what is that?
It's general, it's part of the CARES Act that was set aside for airport improvements and transportation. So we were able to get, it's $61,000 in 3 separate grants and CARES Act allocations that were allocated remaining for FYs 2021 and 22.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll make a motion that we recommend passage.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Cormier, seconded by Counselor Donald to recommend passage to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Item 10913, in order rescinding loan order relating to Elm Street School repairs. Mayor Nicholson?
Thank you very much, Madam President. For the next several of these, they're loan orders that are still on our books for debt that was authorized but not issued, or loans that have completely been utilized up. This is something that popped as a recommendation when we were speaking to the auditors, as just something to help clear up our books and kind of free up some of our bonding capacity that we have on the city's finances. There is still debt that the city has. Later on, there's a notification about me that the only authorized yet unissued debt is for the new school. There is still debt that we carry for the police station, for some of the other school buildings, for other things that we've taken out loans for in a longer term. These were more the shorter term loans that we've taken out that we don't need anymore. So it's really just trying to clean up our books to try to help, again, one, follow what the auditors are doing to help our standing there and potentially help boost our bond rating in the long run. And
yeah, exactly what he said. Basically, we have a debt schedule that we submit to the DOR every year, and basically we're just cleaning that up. We had all these loans on that debt schedule. It was just a portion, most of it were portions that were never used, and this is just to clear that up.
to put this into perspective, this is $15 million worth of loans that we're taking off the books now. That's how much we borrowed for the police station. So this is actually taking off a big portion off of our books that we just don't need anymore because we just never utilize the funding. But for this Elm Street School project in particular, this was related to just upgrades that were done to the windows and boilers of the facility that was done through a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority. The MSBA does require us to take out the full amount of funding up front and then reimburses that. So this is why we had to take out the loan, even though we knew the grant funding was coming from the MSBA's. That's the only way they'll certify and give the funding. So that's what this particular loan order was given for, and that project has since been completed, and we can get this off the books. There was an unused amount of $3.5 million that was related to utility upgrades that we then got a grant for from Honeywell to be able to do more energy efficient thermostats and heating systems throughout the building. So there was another source of funding that came in and covered that portion of it, so that's why that wasn't used.
Questions, comments from the committee? No, Councilor Cormier on the school building committee?
No, keep covered.
No, I have no questions. I'll entertain a motion to recommend passage to the full council.
Sure.
Motion made by Councilor Delisle, second by Councilor Cormier to recommend passage to the full council. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed say no. Motion passes. Unless there's discussion, sorry, I missed that part. No. Okay. Item number 10914 in order, I'm sorry, 10913, no, 10914 in order rescinding the loan order relating to the replacement of Powell filter at the Crystal Lake Water Treatment Facility.
Thank you, Madam President. Same thing as we said for the previous one. This loan was originally taken out to replace the Powell filters. These are very, probably filters as tall as this room and as wide as this room that we're in right now, that when the water comes in from Crystal Lake's reservoir that gets processed through these filters, there are a series of several different, looks like basically giant test tubes that have a series of filters throughout them as well. That replacement was done. The bids came in under what we thought the original price would be, but we have to have the money appropriated before we can go out to bid. So there is a remaining $92,186 in the account that we don't need, so that can fully be rescinded and that money released.
Motion that we approve the recommended decision.
Second?
Motion made by Councilor Cormier, seconded by Councilor Delisle to recommend the rescinding of the loan order. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item number 10915, an order rescinding loan order relating to walk-in field renovation. Mayor Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam President. Same exact thing as the other two. This was related to the new turf field and bleachers at the Watkins Field facility at Gardner High School. This project is fully completed and there is no money left in the account. However, a rescission vote is still needed in order to clear it off the books. The bathroom facility is being done outside of this. That is just about complete. That is being funded in large part through the Reserve for Capital Projects Bond Revenue account that comes whenever we take out a loan. There's certain incentives that the banks who bid on these loans give to the city that's reserved in an account. It's considered authorized by the city council for use of the administration when the loan order itself is approved. So that's how we were able to fund that. That does include bathrooms, facilities, as well as a full concession stand. It's the first time we've had bathrooms outside of Gardner High Schools ever. So it's good, should help.
Move to recommend decision of the loan order.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Delisle, seconded by Councilor Cormier to recommend rescission of the loan order. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 10916, order rescinding the loan order relating to the DPW storage building construction. Mayor Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam President. This was for the construction of the cold storage building located at 50 Manka Drive. The building is complete and is currently housing most of the vehicles for the Department of Public Works, as well as a lot of the signage, our spare stop signs, our spare traffic lights, and it's basically just a general storage facility for both the Department of Public Works and the city as a whole. The bids came in under what we thought. There is a remaining $200,000 left that can be released as a result of this rescission vote.
Move to recommend rescission.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Delisle, seconded by Councilor Cormier to recommend rescission of the order. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Item 10917, an order rescinding the loan order related to the Waterford Street School feasibility study. Mayor Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam President. This was later on funded through a free cash appropriation. So there was no need for this loan to be taken out. It's one of those things when we have issues with free cash, we take out a short-term loan, then once free cash gets certified, we can then go back and basically cover our bases that way. So this can fully clear the $750,000 off the city's books.
Move to recommend the rescission of the loan.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Donlin, seconded by Counselor Cormier to recommend rescission of the loan. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Item 10918, an order rescinding the loan order relating to Snake Pond well repairs. Mayor Nicholson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. This was a loan order that was taken out of the water enterprise account. Again, same thing, retained earnings in the enterprise account had not yet been certified by the time this project needed to be approved, so a short-term loan was approved, and then once retained earnings were certified as part of the free cash process, we were able to have an appropriation from that amount, so this loan was never issued, therefore the full $100,000 that was authorized can be cleared from the city's books.
Move to recommend rescission.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Donlin, seconded by Counselor Cormier to recommend rescission of the loan order. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Item 10919, an order rescinding the loan order relating to the acquisition of the Amelia property. Mayor Nicholson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. This is very similar to what we just said before. However, unlike just free cash, this was also part of a grant that we received from the Parkland Acquisition Park Grant. I forget what the acronym PARC stands for other than Parkland Acquisition. However, the full amount of the $174,162 was not issued, but was authorized, and this would clear it from the books in full.
Move to recommend rescission.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Donlin, seconded by Counselor Cormier to recommend the rescindance of the loan order. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Item number 10920, an order rescinding the loan order relating to various capital expenditures. Mayor Nicholson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. When building up our debt schedule in order to plan for the new school's debt hitting our books and not having an extreme hit on the budget as once, the previous administration took out several different small short-term loans in order to build up the $2 million that you see here for different projects that were needed for capital improvements, including heating in the auditorium, Victorian light upgrades in the downtown, a new bucket truck for the building department, street light LED retrofitting, design services for the Watkins Field, upgrading the electrical panel at the school department, a dump truck for the Department of Public Works, sanders for the Department of Public Works, paving of the Gardner High School and Elm Street School, parking lots and security cameras at Gardner High School and Gardner Middle School. All of those projects have since been completed. There's nothing left in the account, and this would just clean it off the books.
Move to rescind the loan order.
Second.
Recommend rescinding the loan order.
Motion made by Counselor Donlin, seconded by Counselor Cormier to recommend rescindance of the loan order to full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 10921, an order rescinding the loan order relating to water infrastructure paving work. Mayor Nicholson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. This was related to paving that was done through the water infrastructure improvement project that we did last year. The bulk of this went toward paving Pearl Street, but it also just went to paving any street that we dug up to put the new water lines into. We were able to take a loan out from the water enterprise account, so this is a retained earnings loan in order to pave wherever we dug up. So since we did about 20 streets with new water lines last year, this went toward paving all of those streets after we dug them up.
And move to recommend.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Donlin, seconded by Counselor Cormier to recommend rescindance of the loan order. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Item 10922, an order rescinding the loan order relating to the acquisition of the Amelia property off of Leo Drive for open space.
Thank you, Madam President. Similar to item number 10919, this was related to the purchase of property off of Leo Drive for what is now Bailey Brook Park. It's related to the park grant that the city received. Later on, the funding came from both that grant and a free cash appropriation. So the full amount was never issued, even though it was authorized. So this authorization would free up that $320,000 off the city's books.
Move to recommend rescission to full council.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Donlin, seconded by Counselor Ron Cormier to recommend rescindance of the loan order to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 10923, an order rescinding the loan order relating to the Complete Streets Downtown Improvement Project. Mayor Nicholson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. This is related to this was the city's match for the Complete Streets grant that we received back in September of 2021. Free cash had not yet been certified. We needed to put up our match, so we took out this short-term loan. When free cash was certified in November later that year, an equivalent amount was appropriated from free cash. Therefore, none of the money needed to be issued, and this would free up the full amount from the city's debt schedule because it's already been paid for out of free cash.
Move to recommend rescinding the loan.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Denalowitz, seconded by Counselor Cormier to recommend rescindance of the loan order. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 10924, an order rescinding the loan order relating to GHS lab and boiler upgrades. Mayor Nicholson?
Thank you, Madam President. This is pretty simple. It went towards upgrading 2 of the Gardner High School science labs and all of the boilers at the Gardner High School facility. The bids came in under. We've had a $44,381 remaining. This would free that up. I should say in all of these that either the items were never issued or there's a remaining balance because of how our bond counsel writes these loan orders. Even if there's something related to that work that could, you know, if the project's ongoing and needs more money for something else, the loans are approved for specific purposes. So for instance, with the Amelia property one, even though it was never issued, the loan was approved for the purchase of the property, therefore it can't be used for something else towards the property. So even though there's $44,000 here, the loan was approved for those specific labs and the boilers. It can't be used for another facility upgrade at Gardner High School. So that's why these rescission votes have to happen the way they do. So this would again free up the remaining amount and get it off the city's books.
Move to recommend rescinding the loan to the full council.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Denalowitz, seconded by Counselor Cormier to recommend rescindance of the loan order to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Item 10925, an order rescinding the loan order relating to water treatment facility upgrades. Mayor Nicholson?
Thank you very much, Madam President. Pretty simple. The non-POL filter upgrades that have been done at the water treatment plant at Crystal Lake, this covered that back in 2015. There is $9.5 million remaining in this account that was not needed because we ended up doing the POL filter separate. And so that's why that's remaining there. And this is clear to free this up from the water enterprise account.
I move to recommend rescission of the loan.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Denalowitz, seconded by Counselor Cormier to recommend rescission of the loan order. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 10926, an order rescinding the loan order relating to the water infrastructure improvement project. Mayor Nicholson?
Thank you very much, Madam President. This was the loan that helped us replace all the city's water lines that were installed between 1862 and 1933. We completed this project last year.
Move to recommend rescinding the loan order.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Denalowitz, seconded by Counselor Ron Cormier to recommend rescindance of the loan order. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 10927, an order rescinding the loan order relating to water storage tank repairs. Mayor Nicholson?
Thank you very much, Madam President. This went to the general maintenance of the above-ground storage tank on 140 and a small portion on James Street. There is $53,000 remaining in this that can be freed up from this. I will note that we'll probably see something like this come before the council soon for the James Street towers and the 140 towers. By federal regulation, we actually have to send divers into these towers once every couple of years to inspect the inside to make sure that there's no corrosion. Basically what happens is because these are above-ground facilities, the water on the top freeze, but as the water levels rise and sink, that ice actually scratches the inside of the towers, so we have to have someone go in as a diver and actually recoat the inside of the tanks every now and again. So we might see this happening within the next year or two again, but this will clear it up for the 2015 project.
I move to recommend rescission of the loan order.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Denalowitz, seconded by Counselor Cormier to recommend rescission of the loan order to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 10928, an order rescinding the loan order relating to sewer main installation and pump station upgrades. Mayor Nicholson?
Thank you, Madam President. Similar to what we did with the water infrastructure last year, a couple years ago, back in 2019, we did this with the sewer pipes. There's $165,000 left in the account. There was also pump station upgrades done on Coleman Street and on Mill Street as part of this project.
Move to recommend rescinding the loan order.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Denalowitz, seconded by Counselor Cormier to recommend rescindance of the loan order. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Item 10929, an order rescinding the loan order relating to the Gardner Middle School improvements. Mayor Nicholson?
Thank you very much, Madam President. This was basically fixing some holes in the roof at the Gardner Middle School. Again, this was an issue where the free cash wasn't sufficient at that time because it was at the end of the fiscal year. So we had to take out the loan. The loan was actually issued. There is $35,000 in change remaining in the account that will be freed up as a part of this.
I Move to recommend rescinding the loan to full council?
Second?
Motion made by Counselor Donald, second by Counselor Cormier to recommend rescinding the loan order to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Thank you, Auditor Richard.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mayor Nicholson. We have Director Cormier here for the next couple. Thank you for being here today. Item 10930, a measure authorizing a 5-year contract period for school food services.
Thank you, Madam President. Chapter 30B requires that the council vote to approve any contract that has a period of over 3 years. We're requesting a 5-year so that we can get a better rate when we go out to bid for these services.
That was it. Yeah, it's section 12B if you need to know the specifics, but yeah.
Just one quick question. Sure. I mean, we do this, it's almost as a matter of course.
Yeah,
If after a couple of years, is the contract 4 or 5 years or allow you to go 5 years? Can you get out of the contract if it's,
so each one of these is gonna be a little bit different. But the food service one is directed, it'd be a 5-year, but I think every year they have to renew. There's a separate document that comes from the state, from DESI, that requires them to update before they can renew.
okay, that's,
So, yeah.
I think that's really what I was,
But this would be in the case of if we were going for a 5-year contract, if we were going for a 3 that also allowed an extra year of renewals, anything that totals more than 5 years would require, or has the possibility to total more than 5 years.
just gives us a good chance to get a bit better price. Yeah, I make a motion that we recommend passage.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Cormier, seconded by Counselor Donalowitz to recommend authorization. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 10931, a measure authorizing a 5-year contract period for school custodial services. Mayor Nicholson?
Thank you, Madam President. Same exact explanation as the previous one, but for custodial services instead of food services.
Okay.
Director Cormier, anything to
Same
add?
thing, yeah.
Make a motion that we recommend
Second.
passage of the authorization.
Motion made by Counselor Cormier, seconded by Counselor Donalowitz to recommend passage of the authorization to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 10932, a measure authorizing 5-year contract period for golf cart rentals. Mayor Nicholson?
Thank you very much, Madam President. This would follow the same explanation as the other two, but for golf cart rentals, but the funding for this one is funded through the golf enterprise account and not from the general fund.
I make a motion to recommend authorization.
I'll second.
Just one thing to add to this, the previous 2 contracts that exist expire in June, the end of the fiscal year. This one actually doesn't expire until the end of October, but the Golf Commission Chairman has asked me to put it up ahead of time, just in case the supply issues cause. Once we have approval, I'll reach back out to him and see what the process will be for this, whether we go out earlier or not. I just wanted to add that. This one doesn't expire, I think, until October 31st, so.
Please note that Councilor Donalowitz is abstaining. Nice. I'll second the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Thank you, Dr. Sherman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna take items 10933, 34, 35, 36, 37, and 38. We can group those together. I believe they all go under the same explanation. We'll vote on them separately, but if Mayor Nicholson, if you could take those all together.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So there's been a series of recent class action lawsuit settlements done through the Attorney General's office that the city had signed on to as co-plaintiffs in against different opioid manufacturers and distributors. As a result of the opioid epidemic, there's been a demonstrated correlation between actions taken by opioid manufacturers who overproduced these products and then opioid distributors who then overprescribed these products. That then led to a domino effect, if you will, with the opioid epidemic. So as a result of that, every community in Massachusetts is eligible to receive a portion of the settlement. Gardner's portion is 0.0312% of the settlement. This funding totals to a total amount of $1.1 $1,166,633.33 over the course of the next 13 years, ending in 2038. Not 13 years, but 2038. The funding schedule for this is all different depending on which lawsuit settlement it is. We've gotten portions from Walmart, Teva, Allegrin, CVS, Walgreens, Johnson & Johnson's, and then the manufacturer distributor settlement that we talked about earlier. All of these funds are restricted by settlement regulation. They can only be used towards initiatives meant to combat the opioid epidemic. So we can't use this to fund general fund expenditures. It has to go toward funding specific items that are related to opioid prevention, substance abuse prevention in general, harm reduction things and things of that nature. This is actually the Gamma contract that the City Council approved earlier last year through the supplemental budget, where we're going to be working with Gamma to hire a bachelor's degree level clinician to go with the police department on any overdose calls. That was when we just had the distributor $526,000 settlement. Now that we've doubled that, we'll be seeing what we can use the remaining funds for. The legislature has not created the special revenue designation for this funding yet, and we're hoping that that gets settled in this session of the legislature. So what this has to happen now is this funding comes into the general fund, has to be appropriated as a supplemental budget by the City Council for those specific purposes, and if not, it then falls to free cash. If it falls to free cash, the administration is then required to put up a free cash appropriation amount when free cash is certified of the equivalent amount that was left over and unappropriated at the end of the fiscal year for those specific purposes. So there's no wiggle room or way around getting around these regulations. If we didn't, it would pop on the audit almost immediately, and we'd actually get fined and potentially lose the remaining settlement funds for the rest of the schedule. So that's why we're really doing what we can to try to get as much info as we can by the time the budget's submitted. The funding schedule that I sent out to the council and that's listed in the packet here is the estimated schedule that's being overseen by the Attorney General's office. They are overseeing that these distributions are actually being given out in the way that they're supposed to be done, and then the Attorney General's office will be the one to audit the accounts aside from the city's regular auditing firms. As well. So these are very highly restricted, highly audited, highly regulated funds that we have to use for these specific purposes, but I really think it's going to make a lot of good for our region.
Thank you, Mayor Nicholson. I'm glad to see that we're getting, thank you for the notifications on this, because it's going to show what we're doing in the community, that we have the resources and funding able to do it. It's also the type of funding that you hope you never had to get, because it's too bad that there is this epidemic and this huge problem. And hopefully that the legislature, they kind of clean up that process a little bit during this session. But the fact that we're going to be held accountable, we already have programming going on in the city to be able to help this issue, which is a huge issue and problem. I think it's something that we are prepared for, and I think that's done through the good efforts of all the good resources we have in the community for it. So hopefully we'll be able to help a lot of people.
Yeah. So in this particular case, this is merely a notification. Our action here probably be to recommend to place it on file.
Yeah.
But when the funds are deposited in our general fund, we as a council will be receiving money orders as we would for the specific use. And
correct.
we'll receiving that information.
Yes. Once I got the notification and signed on to the contract, I just wanted to make sure the council was aware as early as possible. That way, when it comes before the council, it's not as confusing as to why we're doing a supplemental budget in May, when normally we can't do that in December. I will say that there is a additional lawsuit that we're still waiting on to see if the city's gonna get any settlement money for against Juul, based off of underage vaping leading towards different health issues as people enter into their 20s and 30s, or getting different nicotine addictions because of vaping in the long run. We have not heard on that one, but the class was just formally settled. We just don't know what our portion, if any, will be, because there are several different individuals who were able to sign on to that rather than just states and municipalities like these were.
Thank you.
And the only thing I like to add is, I don't know if you have this nice spreadsheet, it does give us what we're gonna be getting in, let's say, next year. We're gonna put that in our budget for FY24, so it doesn't, it's gonna be a wash. So we're gonna get the revenue and we're gonna budget as the expended, so it's a wash. Let's say if we get more, that's when we gotta look at, okay, yeah, we'll have to, that's gonna fall to free cash, and then in the following year and get our proof that way. So I don't know if that kind of
Yeah.
makes it more complicated, but as long as we know what we're gonna get in advance, we can put that in our original
It's not
budget.
any different than something on a cherry sheet.
Correct, yes.
Exactly. So we're planning, we're gonna get that money, and we're planning the expenditure, so it's kind of a wash on our books.
Yeah,
If there's
so-
a schedule on each of these, some
Yes.
vary a little bit, but.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because if you look at the Walmart one, those are expected to come in on June 25th of each year, where that's 5 days before the end of the fiscal year. It can be somewhat of a nightmare in trying to figure out how to get this before it falls to free cash, so that would help us in that long run.
All right, I'll make a motion that we recommend placing all of these documents from 933 down to 938 on file.
Motion made by Councilor Ron Cronin, seconded by Councilor Generalowitz to place item 10933, 10934, 10935, 10936, 10937, 10938, to recommend placing all of those items on file. Is there discussion on the motion?
I just had one further question. I know you talked about the time frame that to spend. It sounded like it just keep falling back to free cash and you have to reappropriate it again and again. And that's just in perpetuity. There's no time frame on spending this money where it would have to be sent back.
Correct, no, if it's not expended by the end of the fiscal year, it falls to free cash, we have to, like you said, we have to track it separate like that.
Separately, until hopefully the state
Yes.
comes with a different system.
Correct, yes, we're really hoping that this session that'll alleviate that, because not so much in cities where we deal with the city council as the legislature, but a lot of towns across the Commonwealth are concerned that when their budgets are presented to town meeting that may not be as familiar with these restrictions would cut that part of the budget or reduce that part of the budget, thinking that they're saving money. Well, then if that gets reduced, then it prompts a free cash appropriation the next fiscal year for the equivalent amount of that reduction, because again, that funding specifically is restricted. So even if the budget does get reduced, it then considers it falls to free cash and all this other stuff there, so it just makes a nightmare for bookkeeping more than anything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Those items, even the city council meeting, I think we could vote on those individually, but we can decide then if we want to group them.
I would think that can be voted as a block. The other ones, the orders,
Those are all too different from.
you can take those individually or.
I just did separate letters for all of these because their schedules are all different and the amounts are all different, so that's why I figured I'd do them separate, but yeah, they're all related to the same.
They're still of an informative purpose as
Correct.
opposed to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Item 10939, notification regarding the status of authorized unissued debt. Mayor Nicholson?
This is the summary of all of the rescissions that were voted on earlier, Madam President. I can, something that I thought of after the packet was submitted, if the council would like, I can certainly provide you with our current schedule of our authorized issued debt, so you can see what's actually carried on the city's books. But this is everything that was there, and again, the only thing that remains unissued at this point is some funding for the new school building that we're just waiting to issue it so we can pay the final bills, but that should be done soon as well.
Yeah, if you can provide that too, that way I think that'll answer that question if it comes up ahead of time. It's good information to have as well. I think it's a good comparison. Thank you.
I did have one question going back to the Complete Streets Downtown Improvement. Did I miss it on the authorized and unissued debt? Is that one?
Yes, we'll get you the updated version of that. That didn't make the spreadsheet.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you. Do we motion to place that on file?
Are you making a motion?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
Motion made by Council General, seconded by Council Cormier to place the notification on file, to recommend placing the notification on file to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 10940, a measure authorizing the mayor to execute the subordination for case number 10-283 for purpose of the Community Development Housing Rehabilitation Program. We have Director Beauregard joining us as well.
Morning.
Welcome. Good morning.
Morning.
Mayor Nicholson?
This is something that's par for the course, so if we, do certain work with certain loans, funding for home improvement projects, particularly with the CDBG program, we actually put a mortgage on the house. This would subordinate our mortgage compared to the bank for when the house is being sold. Director Beauregard can talk a lot more in detail about that.
So, 13 years ago, this homeowner used housing rehab money for their home. They're in the process of refinancing their home right now, and they're asking us to subordinate. Typically, if they're refinancing, pulling money out, we'd have them repay the lien. Or if they're selling the house outright, they repay the lien, but in this case, just refinancing with the bank. So we're gonna subordinate it, remain second on the mortgage. The bank will have first position still. So it's just a matter of us forgiving it allowing them to refinance.
Federal CDBG regulations require us to keep the identity of the homeowner private, so that's why you have the case number and not the address.
This has been doing this for many years.
Yeah.
Through CDBG, so I'll make a motion, we recommend authorization.
Second?
Motion made by Counselor Cormier, seconded by Counselor Donowitz to recommend authorization to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you. Item 10941, a measure authorizing acceptance of Mass General Law, Chapter 41, subsection 110A, closing public office operations on Saturdays. Mayor Nicholson?
Thank you very much, Madam President. This is at the request of the City Clerk's Office with the passage of the Votes Act last year. It requires that there be certain time periods set for voter registration. Right now, unless this section of the general laws is adopted, the City Clerk's Office has to be open for, I believe, 6 hours on Saturday.
5 o'clock on, last day to register was always at 5 o'clock at night.
Yeah, so that would be 6 hours open on a Saturday. This would move that from a Saturday to a Friday, so we don't have to open for that Saturday. When we were open for the Saturday last year, we didn't have anyone come in to register to vote, but we had to have it fully staffed and the building open, which means we had to have our custodial staff here to lock and open the building and everything like that. So there is a financial cost to the city on this one. With the recent increases in ways that people can register to vote, either through the Registry of Motor Vehicles, online at any time through the Secretary of State's office, visiting the City Clerk's office, sending in an application by mail. There's a lot more ways to register to vote now, where it used to be you had to come in person and sign the book, that you don't have to do anymore. So this would just make it easier for the City Clerk's office, ease their operations that they have there, and really help the city financially for this in the long run. This does not exempt the city from any other portions of the Votes Act. So the city is still required to do mail-in balloting for every election that the city has, municipal or state level, unless certain provisions are done by the city council. We would only be required to do in-person early voting if the Board of Registrars voted on a 2/3 vote to have that. Neither of those actions have taken place, so we are planning for mail-in voting, and we are not planning for in-person early voting. However, this is by accepting this position of this portion of the general laws, all it does is make it so that we can close City Hall at 5 o'clock on Saturday rather than 5 o'clock, 5 o'clock on Friday rather than 5 o'clock on Saturday.
Clerk, anything to add?
No one comes in on a Saturday to register.
Yeah.
The letter's pretty straightforward. You know, there wasn't the traffic, so.
Where you obviously is limiting the ability of people to register to vote, if no one's coming in, it's really a waste of resources, it's not being utilized, and as the mayor stated, there are many ways these days to register to vote. Saying that, I move to recommend passage.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Donowitz, seconded by Counselor Cormier to recommend passage to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 10942, a measure to elect John Richard to City Auditor for term expiring February 23rd, 2026. So Auditor Richard is, the auditor's position is overseen by the City Council. It's under the purview of the Finance Committee, so it comes to us first and will be headed to the City Council meeting.
Yeah, this doesn't have to go to the Appointments Committee. It isn't really, it's an election as opposed to an appointment.
So the three positions that the Finance Committee oversees, that the City Council oversees, the clerk, treasurer collector, and the auditor still remain under purview of the Finance Committee because it is an election. Any other appointments put up by the mayor goes to the Appointments Committee. So
I am going to immediately make a motion that we recommend the election of Mr. Richard as our city auditor.
Second.
The only comment I'm making is just, it's been 3 years already since the last time.
Yeah, I looked at the date, I'm like, oh, I couldn't believe it. But my little spiel is, I've been here 7 years, since December 7th. I enjoy it. I don't have anything bad to say about the position. I do up an objectives and goal list, and I give that to the mayor each year. So it's basically my tick list of what I'm gonna do for the year. And again, some of them are just getting my office more efficient, getting everything paperless, so we're not throwing away documentation that doesn't, you know, it's just a waste. And I still see a lot of waste done, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just, trying to, again, you know, each year try to get the waste out. But again, I love the decision, and, I hope you vote me in or get me, you know, vote for my certification.
Well, I'll certainly support it because I've been through many auditors.
Yeah.
Some very, very good. And Mr. Richard is one of the finest that I've ever worked with, and it's been a pleasure to see how he's worked that office and made, I think, the job of the city council as well as the mayor more efficient, if not easier. So strongly will recommend that.
I think the auditor's done a wonderful job, and as long as he spells my name right, I have my vote.
Sorry about that.
I agree, I wholeheartedly support the election. John, you've done a fantastic job, we're lucky to have you here. You work well with us, you work well with the mayor, you always provide everything you need to when you need to have it, you're accessible all the time. I'll always remember 2020, I think I had you in my office every single day when I was acting mayor, because we had a lot of things going on and money all over the place with available grants and funds, and you knew, staying on top of that, you knew what we needed to do when we needed to do it, and it got done, and here we are 3 years almost later, and we're still recovering and working with all those kinds of things, and you've been on top of it. I appreciate the efficiency of the office, quite honestly. We always have the information that we need, and of course, we've had these wonderful audits the last couple of years that have gone so well for the city, and that's definitely a tribute to you and your office and the work that you do. Director Cormier, did you have something?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like giving you my 2 cents, but just to add it, I came in late in 2019, and John has been a mentor. He's provided me with a training. Even last week, he was providing me with training on how to update Munis workflow. John is always there for questions, and much like the case with you in 2020, coming in late 2019 to purchasing and having it flipped in 2020, having John as a person that could help me through that, you can't even put a price on that, because without him, I don't know how I would have made it through those 3 years. John's been great. So as a peer, as a colleague to him, I don't think you need those 2 cents, but just in case you do, if I was sitting there, I'd vote for him as well. So.
And I was here when he had to take over from, at a point where we were having difficulties with that department. And it was a Herculean task that he was up to, and turned everything around, and I can speak from the experience and the gnashing of teeth that we had at the time, how well he did. Now, if we can only get him to support the correct hockey team in this.
I'm leaning towards the Bruins now.
Get that on record.
Not that. Can we erase that?
At least for another 5 days.
No, we can't. Mayor Nicholson?
Thank you, Madam President. Out of respect that this is a council-appointed position, that's why I did step back, but I do have to say, I really do enjoy working with Auditor Richard. You're not gonna find an auditor in most places across the state that have had 3 perfect audit scores in a row, but it just shows you how detail-oriented John is, and I wouldn't be able to do my job, and the rest of the administration wouldn't be able to do their jobs as efficiently and effectively as they do if it wasn't for John making sure that our books were as kept as neat as they are. He's always there to answer questions, and I always get my answers within 10 minutes, which shocks me. I normally expect them within the next day. So he makes my job a lot easier, and I would recommend that as well, even though you don't need it.
Thank you. Okay, so motion made by Councilor Cormier, seconded by Councilor Generalowitz, to recommend John Richard for the position of City Auditor. Is there the election of John Richard to the position of City Auditor? Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 10894, an order appropriating $60,000 from free cash to the Mayor's Department of Professional Services account. Mayor Nicholson?
Thank you very much, Madam President. This was presented at the last Finance Committee meeting. Councilor Walsh asked for the full scope of services and contract that's provided for you in the packet here. You can see that this relates to the actually 3 individuals who will be helping us out on this grant work. On page 4, there's a proposed timeline, so you can see how those grants would line up, as well as the proposed budget, and I believe at the...
Excuse me.
Good item,
Go ahead. I printed this yesterday, so I don't know what I don't have, but I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. And at the bottom of page 2, you can see just some of the places where they'll be looking for these grants. And I really think this is gonna be a big benefit for the city. We actually just lost a grant last week because we found it too late and the deadline was the next day. But the city would have been eligible for $1.3 million to retrofit a portion of the Waterford Street School building for food and security purposes. So we actually could have gotten up to 1.3 for both the CAC and Growing Places portion. So that's $2.6 million that we lost out on because we weren't able to find the grant in time and then have the expertise to just sit and write it because of other city operations. So that's something I'm really hoping that this position can pick up so we don't end up in a situation like that in the future.
Well, thank you for providing, I know this is the request and info, this is why this had gotten referred back to our committee, because Council Walsh had requested it, and, you know, we did want to see it, and I think it's definitely something that we need to review before we make the decision. So I know you typically work pretty quickly and efficiently, and I understand we didn't have it before the council meeting, but I'm glad to be able to have it now and have a couple of extra days to review it, and the council will too before our next meeting. So any questions, comments from the committee?
Only, Mr. Biragad has a
Oh,
comment.
Dr. Biragad?
Just real quick, I know there was discussion, I think at the last meeting, about the Community Development Planning Department being the office that usually writes grants and everything like that. So, just so everybody understands, at this point in time, we're managing over $7 million worth of grants. And that's for projects that I see being implemented over the next 12 to 24 months. And so we have no capacity right now to write additional, not only write additional grants, but to manage additional grants. And I just want that to be clear. And I think it's, you know, there is a lot of money coming down from the federal government right now that I think the city could capitalize on. I think this is it's a good idea to get additional capacity on board to write and manage various grants.
Well,
Thank you.
That's my two cents. Thanks.
the one thing I would like is if this passes and was in favor of and still am, is that we receive perhaps a monthly progress report as to, you know, because it is a significant amount of money. It was also pointed out by somebody, maybe it was you, that, you know, all we have to do is score $60,001 and we're ahead of the game. Well, I would hope it's more than that $1. But it would be nice to see if this is a worthwhile. We don't always get that. But I think that would be part of the contract, perhaps, that they be required to give us a monthly breakdown.
Yeah.
I'm saying monthly, somebody might have a better idea as to the time frame, but I think that would make us all feel a little bit better and be informed as we go, as opposed to at the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I know said there, you know, those municipal strategy meetings, I'm assuming those could be part of, would already be part of that, telling you what's happening, what's
Correct.
gonna be happening, what may be happening.
Yes.
I was in favor, as Council Cormier said before, and still in favor. I make a motion to recommend it again to the full council.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Barrett, seconded by Councilor Ron Cormier to recommend passage of the order to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. We're gonna go back up to 10943. I apologize for that. I had a different copy of this that I had printed out
That was
previously.
taken off.
That was taken off the agenda, Madam President.
Oh, it was taken out. Okay,
Yes.
so that's why I don't, okay. I was gonna say, I was like, I just looked at this again yesterday. I wasn't on there, so.
I was gonna mention that in the new business section of the meeting,
Okay,
but
we can do that
we would
then.
do that then, okay.
Okay. Moving on to item number 10885. An ordinance to amend the code of the city of Gardner, chapter 171 thereof entitled Personnel to change compensation schedule 1, yearly salaries, mayor, city councils, and school committee. So this item was in the city council, referred to the finance committee on January 17th. It was referred to the committee of the whole on February 6th. We had an informal meeting on February 21st, and then it was referred back to us here at the finance committee for further study and report. So what we have in our packet materials, we have Councilor Mack's proposal, and the amended proposal that we talked about at the informal meeting the other evening and amongst the council was provided, I had proposed that, and that was at 1% compounded every single year since the last time a a raise was issued, and, or I'm sorry, was voted on. And so, with that being said, the new amended proposal that is in front of you is, at 2%. It took into consideration Counselor Mack's, her proposal, which she had included each year, so she had put for 20, I just wanna make sure I have this correct, excuse me. The effective dates of January 1st, 2024, 2025, 2026, each of the different, in exhibit A, B, and D, so for mayor, council president, city councilor, and school committee. And so I took that into consideration, and looking at where many times 2% is the raise that is received by a lot of the different positions that we have to vote on, and schedules we have to vote on, and kind of getting something to be a little bit more consistent and knowing what we go on each year. I put this proposal in at 2%, because I think, you know, as we've talked about, people have mentioned steps and what we can look at moving forward. Also I think we might build towards that again in the future. I think other councils might consider that, but I don't know, I can't speak for them. So I know at the informal meeting, I presented a 1%, but on the amended one, this is 2%, taking consideration Councilor Mack had put in, taking into consideration that we want to go up by a certain percentage or some type of step or something each year. And so in the future, and as Councilor Cormier has said during this meeting and in our formal meeting, you know, and a lot of other people agreed too, it looks like there's this huge raise, we're going up, you know, 8%, 10%, whatever it is. Well, we also haven't had a raise go into effect since January 2nd, 2018, which was voted on by the council in 2017. So to avoid those jumps in the future and these kinds of things happening, if we review this on a more consistent, well, we always review it on the same basis, but if we review it, we take a look at it, you know, we can avoid that type of thing from happening if we don't wait so long for it to happen. Also, what's included on the amended proposal in our packet is the acting mayor's salary based on, it's a weekly salary as it was in the previous one, but it's based on 75% of the mayor's full salary. And again, that's a 2% raise. So Councilor Walsh has suggested this. I think it's a good idea. The acting mayor position, you don't have the full mayor's purview or responsibilities in the way of you can really only act on things. You can't sign binding contracts, or there's things that you can't do. So you're not doing the same scope of work that the mayor's doing. It's also offered here on a weekly salary because it's just as the, you only receive it on a temporary basis until the full mayor position is elected. So that's my explanation of the amended proposal that's in here, because it is different than the proposal that I put in at the informal meeting. And at this meeting, we need to recommend something to the council.
And if I might, it does include it's a 2-year process.
Yes.
Which we have to do because we're not allowed to do it in the odd numbered year anyway. And during this period of time, I would hope the council, wherever that council may be, develops a program that would be more efficient, if you will, and more, not automatic, but one that would prevent the need from reviewing this every 7 or 8 years with these, what appears to be an inordinately large amount of raise. This is realistic. These are people, and these are positions that are required to perform for the city. And again, we're voting for the positions, not the individuals. No matter how many times I say that, it may fall on deaf ears, but in fact, it's on positions. Because you could have, the way our charter is, unless somebody wants to change the charter, we could have 100% change of the entire legislative body and executive branch. So we vote for the positions. So I'm very much in favor of this. I'm going to recommend the 2% with a 2-step process. I make a motion, to recommend that to the full council.
Second?
Motion made by Councilor Ron Connor, seconded by Councilor Donald Louts to recommend the, just wanna make sure I do this right, to recommend the 2% proposal for passage to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion?
I think this proposal does, as President said, did a good job of working the two fire together. As Councilor Cormier said, it's something that we're voting on for the position, and something that keeps getting left on the side of the road and passed over by councils. And now here we are with, in order to just do a 2% raise a year, which many of the people in the building do get, and now it's a 14–15% raise to keep up with that just this time, never mind times before. So I'm happy to see this, and looking forward to talking over with the full council on Monday.
Thank you, Councilor. And I do think that it does reflect, the positions, as Councilor Cormier said, and as you said, it looks like this astronomical increases, as we've said, but it really is something that, if we review it and we do it and we have a plan moving forward, and again, it could be any council moving forward, but this is our best effort to be able to do that. And I do think the idea of having it listed up in the 2 years, effective January 1st, 2024, then effective January 1st, 2025, we're being very intentional and specific on what we're trying to do here. So, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. New business? Mayor Nicholson?
Thank you very much, Madam President. Just to keep the Finance Committee informed about some stuff that are going on. Last meeting, our DPW business manager did mention that we were likely to be receiving a grant for the wastewater treatment facility. We did receive $1.3 million from the Environmental Protection Agency of the federal government to purchase equipment to remove nitrogen from the city's wastewater. This is part of the new MS4 permitting requirements that the EPA requires us to do, so that grant has been confirmed, so we will be getting that.
You said that grant at 1.3 was confirmed.
Yes.
Okay.
The referee contract that was on the Finance Committee agenda, that was then not on the Finance Committee agenda after that, we went out for solicitation on those and got the same rate for a 3-year contract that we would have gotten at a 5-year contract, so we're just gonna go with the 3-year contract on that one because there was no financial benefit for the extended year, so that's why that item was removed.
So 10943, it was because this was going to be for the duration longer than 3 years, so you removed it.
Correct, because it's the wash on finances, yeah. Okay. And then the cherry sheets were released last week, even though the governor will be filing her budget today. Again, cherry sheets because they used to be mailed out on pink colored paper and then the name just stuck as an official state name. Our local aid is expected to go up a lot. The governor is fully funding the Student Opportunity Act, so we are seeing about a $4.1 million increase in our Chapter 70 aid for our schools. This is the largest Chapter 70 increase that we have had in Gardner in a single year. Aside from that, our charter school tuition reimbursement went down somewhat substantially from $104,000 to $35,000, but we don't have as many Gardner residents attending charter schools, so that's why we don't have to pay out as much for charter schools, so we're getting reimbursed substantially less. Our school choice receiving tuition, this is money that we get from other school districts because their students are coming to Gardner, went up from $800,000 to $868,000. Our general, unrestricted general government aid, that one we had a verbal commitment from the Baker-Polito administration that the increase we would be seeing in local government aid would mimic the same percentage increase that the State Consensus Revenue Commission, which is made up of members of the legislature and the administration, vote to review funding trends to see what they think state revenue will be next year. Governor Healy has kept to that pledge and actually gone over that, so while the consensus revenue number is projecting a 1.6% increase at the state level, the governor increased local aid by 2%. So we are seeing an increase from 4.9 million to about 5.1 million. Our veterans benefits reimbursement is going down from $494,000 to $400,000 because Lynette has worked to get a lot of our veterans off of our rolls and onto the VA rolls. That means that we're paying less out, so there's less for us to be reimbursed for, so we're not really seeing a hit as a result of that drop. The funding for the senior center went up from $69,000 to $71,000. The money that the state pays us in lieu of taxes for state-owned land went up significantly from $77,000 to about $93,000. And then the money that we receive for the library went up from $68,000 to $76,000. At the same time, there are deductions that are taken from this funding for different state programs such as regional transportation, mosquito control, certain education programs, tuition for school choice. Our charges actually went down from about $2 million to about $1.8 million. So the amount deducted from our amounts that we're receiving is actually going down too. So we actually are seeing a benefited increase going from last year's total state aid numbers of $29,832,375 to $33,981,210. So that actually does help us out in the long run. So we are actually getting a substantial increase in our state aid this year. So I just want to make sure that the finance committee was aware of that before we go into budget season.
Are you gonna provide us with a copy of that
Yes.
perhaps?
Yes.
In the packet?
If you wanna, put it in the packet or provide it to the council,
Sure.
otherwise,
Either way,
I think
Yeah,
that
for
would
sure.
be good to be talked about at our meeting.
And as that gets updated, as the House and Senate file their budgets and the conference committee, I'll send periodical updates like I do every year anyway.
Yeah, if you wanna include that detail as well too, that this
Yep.
is pending, just for the public watching and.
Yes.
certain things like
Yes,
that.
and all of that funding is separate of the recent tax proposals that the governor has introduced to the legislature. So when her budget gets filed today, those tax breaks will be included in the budget, but also will all of that funding. So that's not one or the other, so that's all considered together there too. It's basically the new, the fair share amendment that was passed last year, the millionaire's tax, for lack of a better term, is funding both of those programs. And that's how Governor Healy has chosen to spend that money. So that's basically what's going forward in that budget.
If you can provide that in the form of like a notification to the
For sure.
council for our next meeting, that'd be
Yep.
great, thank you. Any further new business? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made by Mr. Lott, seconded by Council Plummer, all those in favor say aye. Aye, those opposed no, motion passes, meeting stands adjourned. Thank you, thank you.
Thanks for updating me.